5826. If you are trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581.
Attention all business owners and creative minds. Do you need a unique and personalized touch for your products? Look no further than Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Romika Designs. We offer custom laser engraving services for a variety of products, including promotional items and corporate or personal gifts. With state-of-the-art equipment and a team of skilled designers, we can engrave intricate designs on virtually any material. Whether it's a special message, a company logo, or a custom design, Romika Laser Engraving will help you make your mark. And the best part, our prices are affordable and our turnaround time is quick.
I couldn't be happier with the work Romika Laser Engraving did for me. The engraving on my product was precise and exactly what I wanted.
So don't wait any longer to add a personal touch to your products. Call Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs today at 817-400-4040 or visit our website at romikadesigns.com. We look forward to helping you make your mark.
Good evening, everybody. I would like to welcome you to our Maiden Voyage here on Game On NTX, Local Heart, National Pulse. Today we're going to start trying to transverse the sporting world. My name is Bill Lawhn, and my co-host is
John Mitcham.
Say it again, John.
Can I hear you again, John?
John Mitcham.
There we go. There we go. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We are going to cover a number of topics today, but before we get to that, I would like to thank our sponsor. Today's show is brought to you by Ensemble Co-working, Fort Worth's hub for private offices, co-working, meeting space, and virtual mail. Find your perfect workspace at ensemblecoworking.com. We're going to start today's show with the Texas Rangers. Where has their offense gone? Well, it showed up last night in Minnesota. Is it a fluke or is it here to stay? We saw this little spurt a couple of weeks ago when they played the Cardinals and they had a good couple of games. Now, they scored 16 runs last night against the Minnesota Twins. But they've had instances where they'll go out and they'll have a good offensive showing where they'll come back the next night and get shut out on 2 hits. So, John, what do you think? Do you think this is a fluke, or do you think we're going to continue to see continued improvement from this offense?
Man, the Texas Rangers, I think as a fan base, we're frustrated because I think we expected a lot more out of the offense. At the very least, I think we expected the pitching to struggle, and it was kind of the opposite. We've had the opposite. The only struggle that we've actually had this year has been from the bullpen, which we all expected. Now, the starting pitching has been, for lack of better terms, elite. If we had half of the offense that we did last year, we'd be leading the division, and it wouldn't even be close. I hope that firing the hitting coach may have, and we're seeing the transition. I'm hoping we're rooting out some of the old habits and turning a new leaf offensively. I'm hoping that's what's going on, but I think it's too early to tell, honestly.
I know that. John, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. I know that the change to Boone, it is so early yet, but they're going to have to figure something out soon because the trade deadline, it seems like a long ways away, but it's really not. So they have to decide. If the offense gets better, then they're obviously going to be buyers. Or they're going to look to add another hitter? Um, and what do they have to deal for him? What do they have? They have excess pitching, but who do you trade? Patrick Corbin has been a revelation this year. They did not expect to get what they're getting from him, but I don't know how much value he has on the trade market. Tyler Mahle also, I believe he's overachieved. They thought that he would be a good pitcher, but he has far exceeded those expectations.
Correct.
Do you deal from a surplus of pitching to try and add a hitter, or do you feel like it's going to damage the team more if they move one of the pitchers?
I think that's a difficult question to answer because the strength of the team, the strength of the team is the pitching. Now,
Agreed.
The obvious weakness, and we're beating a dead horse with a stick. The obvious weakness is the offense and the bats. Now, if we want to address the offense, the question is, who out there do you get that would be achievable, right? Like who could we go get right now that would be easy enough to obtain for somebody like a Patrick Corbin is the question, right? So would you package, a Patrick Corbin and a prospect of some sort? And I'm not saying, a Walcott, not one of those prospects, maybe a lower end prospect.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
But would you package a Patrick Corbin and a lower tier prospect for I'm not saying anyone in particular, but who out there would immediately be a lightning rod to the offense that immediately makes this offense better, right? Do you think one bat immediately makes this offense better?
I don't. I think they might have found something with Jake Berger being a full-time DH, because if you look at his best seasons, and the best parts of his seasons have come when he is exclusively DHing. That brings a problem. The fact that you signed Jock Peterson for a fairly significant amount of money to come in and be your DH, he has obviously struggled. So he comes back. If Berger's your full-time DH, where do you put him? I don't know that Jock at this stage of his career is capable of playing the outfield, and he doesn't seem receptive, from what I understand, to play first base. And you can't continue to have him in the lineup it's a black hole.
Yeah.
Josh Smith, you have to have him in the lineup somewhere. He has played first base. He's done an okay job, but I think the more you play him there, the more comfortable he's going to get. He did, after all, win a Gold Glove last year as a utility player. So I think the more reps he gets there, the better he's going to be. So you need those two to. Marcus Semien seems to have found his stroke. That he was the American League Player of the Week last week. With him and Berger continuing to improve. The offense has looked better. There still is your catalyst for your offense is still not where he needs to be, and that's Corey Seager.
Correct.
This is the leader of your team. This is the man that you're paying a ton of money to, and he has always produced. And I do believe that he will come back around.
Sure.
But he has to wake up before too long, or it's gonna be too far gone. Fortunately, the division is not that strong. It's not you have nobody running away with it, so there is still time. And Chris Young, Rangers general manager, has shown that he will be aggressive at the trade deadline if he thinks this team has a chance to compete. So let's go worst case scenario here, and let's say they're sellers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you look to offload Jacob deGrom's massive contract to a contender that feels like they're one piece away?
Yes, I
You
would.
you can't, and I agree there, because you can't continue to as healthy as he's been this year, and he has. I don't believe that you can continue to count on that for a long period of time. So if he's still pitching well and you are not in the race, I do think you have to look to move him, because I think you can get a decent prospect or two. I'm not saying you're going to get a lot, because that's a lot of money that you're paying him, and if teams are taking on that much money, they're not going to want to give up quality prospects. So, but I do think you have to look to move him, and Corbin's probably not going to be back, so continue to look at maybe moving Corbin. But I think deGrom is the big piece that has to go. We do. I believe that we're both of the mind that Adolis Garcia will not be back next year.
I agree.
So that opens up, possibilities. Looking at who you're going to have a hole next year. Sebastian Walcott's down there. He's primarily an infielder, but you may have to look at him in right field because just to get him in the lineup. So,
Yeah.
but that's I think we might have had enough Rangers talk on that one. John, what do you think about what's been going on in the college world with baseball and softball?
College world. I love me some college sports.
Absolutely.
College baseball. So this college World Series is a bit of an anomaly. The world of college baseball, everyone speaks so highly of the SEC. We talk about SEC baseball, SEC sports in general. When you talk about, college baseball, college basketball, college football, especially, but college baseball and college football being king in collegiate sports. There are only 2 SEC teams that made it into the College World Series. And that would be national seeds number 6 LSU and number 3 Arkansas.
And it looks like one of them could already be behind the 8 ball after the first game, since they do play each other in this first round.
That is correct. So the matchups for the College World Series are as follows: Coastal Carolina and Arizona.
Yes.
Oregon State and Louisville.
Okay.
Big surprise, Murray State. They won their first ever tournament victory this year, and they eventually go on to make their first ever program College World Series with a 44-15 season record. And they're playing 15 national seed UCLA. So the highest seeded national seed is Arkansas. They are the national 3 seed. So this year would have been a year for, if a national 1 seed made it, this would have been the year that they would have felt very, very comfortable in the College World Series.
I may be putting you on the spot here, but
Sure.
Who do you have in these games? Who would you take in these matchups, these particular matchups?
Oh man. So I'm going to tell you, as a Texas fan, it pains me to say this. We played Arkansas. They beat us up pretty good.
Yes, they did.
They have got some pretty good pitching, and they've got a dangerous lineup.
Indeed.
I would say Arkansas. if you're forcing me to make a pick, I'd say Arkansas.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
I'm rooting for Murray State. Everybody loves a Cinderella.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see Murray State go in there and upset them.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got a serious offense, man. They really do. They really do. They've got a pretty good offense.
Indeed, they do. They
And
put up a ton of runs this year, and they have some really dominant pitching.
they do, and they're very well coached.
Absolutely,
Very, very well coached.
completely agree. I would go with Arkansas as my favorite. I know Coastal Carolina is a national seed at number 13, but I still don't think a lot of people give that program credit because they are year in, year out. They are a consistent winner. I mean, they won the whole thing a few years ago.
Sure. And
So
I'm not going to discredit Coastal Carolina. I would never do that. They went in and they beat a really good Florida team, and they beat East Carolina, who also they dominated a really good Florida team. Actually, East Carolina did, and then Coastal Carolina turned around and beat a very good East Carolina team. So this was a very, very tough. I mean, East Carolina is a very well coached program as well.
Yeah.
But I will say, going back to the Arkansas LSU matchup, you can never count out Jay Johnson. Never, because that dude can coach.
I completely agree. Absolutely, he's one of the best in the country.
He's always got guys. I'm pretty sure that LSU has the best first baseman in the country. Believe his name's Jared Jones, I believe is his name.
Okay.
That dude, now he's slumping a bit right now, but that's the way baseball goes. You never know what's going to happen. But that's why they play baseball. That's why they, it's a best of 3 series. You never know what's going to happen. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see, what happens up in Omaha. So
I'm looking forward to seeing that. I will say this also, Oregon State, they've historically had a great baseball program.
Yeah.
They are the number 8 seed, so everybody knows that they have a good team. But if you look at that school with all the other Pac-12 teams, most of them ended up in the Big Ten. Oregon State was left without a conference. They somehow managed to piece a schedule together.
Sure.
And they even with all the turmoil and the upheaval in the rest of their university, they still managed to put together a really good season. And once again, I think this is a team that could possibly win it all. With I think they would need a few breaks, but I think they could win it all.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And their coach, Coach Canham, he's a heck of a baseball coach as well. Pretty sure he was a catcher. And I think he played at Oregon State as well. Pretty sure. Nobody hate me for this. I'm pretty sure that Baltimore's catcher is an Oregon State catcher.
Adley Rutschman. Yeah.
Adley Rutschman.
Yes,
pretty sure.
Absolutely.
Pretty sure he's an Oregon State guy, but Coach Canham knows how to coach some baseball.
Absolutely.
And they beat a pretty good Florida State team to get where they're at. Florida State, Coach Link had them ginning, and again, you can get out here and say what you want to say about baseball, and there's a lot of people that don't like baseball because they think it's too slow, and I understand that, but man, you got to appreciate what some of these guys can do.
Agreed.
I was never blessed well enough to throw a ball 98 miles an hour. I was never blessed well enough to see the ball well enough to hit a ball that was going 98 miles an hour. So I can appreciate those guys. I will also add that I was not able enough. I was not blessed to be able to hit a ball that was that could bend 18 inches, over the plate
That would be
and hit
amazing.
it. I could not do that. So
Yes.
my kid can do that. Some friends of ours kids can do that. Definitely not me. So these kids that and these young men that do this, they are on a different level. So it's going to be fun to watch these guys in Omaha. So and not to forget about the young ladies, the women's college World Series. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.
The Texas women's softball program won their first national championship, and they beat the mighty Red Raiders from Lubbock in a 3-game series. It took all they had because Miss Najee Kennedy is a beast. And those of you who do not know who Miss Najee Kennedy is, she set records by signing she was the first female collegiate athlete that signed a $1 million NIL deal to play softball for Texas Tech.
If I'm
And
not sorry, if I'm
go
not
ahead.
mistaken, didn't she just sign another one? She signed one last year. Didn't she just sign another one?
She did after the second game, after they beat Texas. I think it was 4-1 or 4-2 was the final.
Yes.
That evening, she signed another one. I believe it was the Matador Club is the name of their NIL group out in Lubbock.
Okay.
They signed her to another 7-figure deal, which pretty much guarantees that she will be back with the Red Raiders of Lubbock next year. So they will undoubtedly be back in Oklahoma City next year. You can almost bet your bottom dollar on that because they've got a pretty good ball coach out there as well.
I was proud of the way that the Lady Longhorns, the way they played in that series. I mean, it was it was a close game in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
They let it get away from them a little bit in the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third game, they came out and they were dominant. They jumped all over Kennedy very early on, and they never let up. But to her credit, Jerry Kennedy, she pitched all 3 games. She started all 3 games in that series, and I believe she was out of gas.
Yeah.
She
Well,
was yeah.
You compound that with the fact that I know we catch flack because we're Texas,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
we get a lot of the best talent out there. I know that. NIL
Yeah.
is not going to be an issue for the University of Texas.
Yeah, no.
But I will say that when you've got a lineup like the University of Texas has, I don't care how good the pitcher is. If you throw that pitcher 3 days in a row, eventually it's going to come back to get you. And I think that happened. And the same thing's going to happen next year. I don't care how good she is. If we've got the lineup that we have, you've got, one, even if it's 1 through 5 only, that's good, you're going to get smoked at some point, and to limit that lineup 2 out of 3 games is pretty darn impressive. And, I don't know if you're aware of this, that first inning of the third game, she gave up 5 runs in that first inning. That is the most runs that she's given up in her career in an inning.
In an inning, yeah.
In an inning. That's Stanford and Texas Tech. And she's played a lot of softball. A lot.
They like I said, they jumped all over quick, including the Mia Scott Grand Slam that really drove home the fact that Tech they were on the verge of getting run ruled, and
Mm-hmm.
they pushed across 3 to keep the game going,
Yep.
and they scored no more after that. Texas, they shut them down with their own pitching, and brought home the program's first national championship, which just continued. I mean, just actually concluded a banner year for the University of Texas in so many sports. I believe they took home a men's swimming and diving championship. They had
I
one other
believe
national.
so.
They had one other national championship that I'm not sure what it was, but they made the playoff in football. They were and they were conference or tournament champions in several other sports.
Mhm.
Going into the SEC, that was supposed to be so good and so dominant, a lot of people didn't think Texas could compete, but they came in and they were competitive or dominant in almost every sport.
Yep.
They
Except for basketball.
except the only good point. The only part of that program that underachieved this past year was the men's basketball team. I mean, the women made it all. They were number one at one point. They made it all the way to the Final Four. They
Yep.
had a great season. And I think the future, honestly, it looks bright, and I think we owe a lot of that to Chris Del Conte, the AD
The best
at
AD
Texas.
in the world.
I would agree with that. He has put great coaches in place. I think that with the basketball team underachieving, they just hired Sean Miller from Xavier. He's got an extensive resume. It remains to be seen if that's going to be the solution. But in my mind, I don't think you had a better option. I think Sean Miller is actually going to be a good coach for this program. And Texas,
agree.
obviously, we've talked about, they have the finances with the NIL money to
Mhm.
bring in anybody they want.
Mhm.
As far as if they're not going to be outbid for a player if they really want that player.
Correct.
So I'm thrilled to see what the future of the program looks like in the university looks like as far as sports goes in every sport. They are good, if not great.
Just a quick cap before we move on from collegiate athletics, because we're closing out the year. So I think we established that UT was in fact SEC ready. I think we did establish that. The Director's Cup. It looks like, depending on the results of the track and field national championship, it's going to be between Texas and USC. And now we know USC generally has a pretty good track and field program.
Absolutely.
Depending on how well they do at that track and field program, it looks like Texas right now is about 80 points ahead. I'm doing my math right.
Oh wow.
They're about 80 points ahead. Now I've not done a lot of research on this Director's Cup. I just know that Texas wins it a lot. And they've done it quite a bit since CDC has been in Austin. So
Now the Directors Cup, if I'm not mistaken, that does cover all the sports, and they add up points for national championships and points for playoffs and things like that. Am I correct?
Hey travelers, do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call, because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. Our prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find ridiculously low prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next flight. Guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first class tickets.
855-325-1820. 855-325-1820. That's 855-325-1820. Have you ever met a single person in your life that enjoys paying taxes? No, no one does. If you can't sleep at night because you have a huge problem with the IRS, I've got some free advice for you. This service is strictly limited to individuals that owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes. And if you qualify, we can guarantee that you won't be writing a big fat check to the IRS, or our services cost you nothing. The first 100 people that call today will get a free tax consultation worth $500. Stop worrying about your IRS problem. We can help you, we promise. Call the tax doctor right now. I mean right now, to learn more. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. That's 800-240-4587.
All right. All right, welcome back to Game on NTX. I'm your host, Bill Lawhn, with my co-host,
John Mitcham.
Once again, I would like to thank our sponsor, Ensemble Co-working. Today's show is brought to you by them. They are Fort Worth's hub for private offices, co-working, meeting space, and virtual mail. Find your perfect workspace at ensemblecoworking.com. All right, John, let's dive into some Dallas Stars hockey. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Yeah, Dallas, they had an unceremonious end to the season, and they played the Edmonton Oilers in the conference final for the second year in a row. But the major news coming out of that is the fact is that they've relieved their coach, Pete DeBoer, of his duties, despite the fact that they've gone to 3 conference finals in a row. He pulled goaltender Jake Ottinger after Ottinger gave up 2 quick goals. Now, I've heard, from what I've heard, it's been 50-50 as far as people that agreed with the decision to pull him, and some say that they pulled him too soon. That wasn't so much the problem. It was the way DeBoer handled things afterwards.
Yeah.
He showed no remorse for what he did. He staunchly believes he made the right decision. And in the first interviews after the series, they talked to DeBoer and they talked to goalie Jake Ottinger, both, and they both said that neither one of them had talked to the other one. That's not a good sign. And then on this last week, Jim Neal made the decision to move on from Pete DeBoer. Dallas faces a glaring lack of toughness, and you're seeing it now in the final between Edmonton and Florida. They are on different levels than what the Stars are on. They have to now address the lack of toughness. Several impending free agents, including your captain Jamie Benn, who has stated he would like to be back, but I don't know if they're going to reduce his pay or if he's willing to take a reduced role. He does want to stay here. So that's a big question you have on top of the coaching search. I've done a little research as far as what they have out there, because several coaches have already been hired, and you could go with experience. John Tortorella and Peter Laviolette have both won cups. You could go with an outstanding college coach if he's interested. David Carl from the University of Denver. He's won 2 national championships. He's won 2 junior championships. He's flirted with several other NHL teams, but every time he seems to have gone back. Obviously, he has gone back to the University of Denver. I think that the Stars might be able to entice him to the pros. They have a good situation. They have a lot of young talent. I think that's a distinct possibility there. You could go 2 other candidates I think would be fine candidates. You have Neil Graham, who's the coach of the Texas Stars, the Stars minor league affiliate. They had an excellent season. He is looked upon as an up and coming coach in the coaching ranks. I think he would be a fine choice. Another great choice, someone that I'm kind of fond of here, would be Steve Ott. He's an NHL assistant. He is also a former Dallas Star. If you brought him in, maybe there's a chance you have Joe Pavelski, former Star, former longtime NHL player on the staff. You could go a number of directions there. So the Stars aren't going to cast a wide net in their coaching search. Out of the guys that I brought up today, John, who do you like? Who would you want to see the Stars hire?
Well, I think they're in a bit of a predicament because, like you said, they made the decision to fire PDB at this juncture after all the hires have been made. So you've got two trains of thought. You're either taking coaches off of either what you want to call the trash heap, and I don't want to use that as a derogatory term, but for lack of terminology, you're taking guys that have been passed over for a reason. Let's use that. They've been passed over for a reason, or guys that other teams feel aren't ready yet, i.e. Neil Graham, right? Now, with Coach Clark out at Denver University, I believe he turned down the Chicago Blackhawks job. And I think the Dallas Stars would be a bit of a different situation for him because with the Chicago Blackhawks, it's more of a full rebuild. With the Dallas Stars, it's not a full rebuild. You've got everything you need here. You just need to coach toughness, right? You've got Rantanen. You've got a franchise goalie, right?
Agreed.
And you've got a lot of pieces. You've got some young guys in the minors, right? The Texas Stars are loaded with talent, right? So that's the thing that worries me about Neil Graham.
Yeah.
Neil Graham has had talent that he's working with down there. So I don't think Neil Graham's a bad coach because obviously he's done well wherever he's gone.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if Neil Graham coming in, if it's a bit too much for him to chew at this point. So my choice, if I had to choose, I don't want Tortorella. I don't. He's a bit too old school. I think you're hiring another DeBoer
I agree.
if you're doing that.
I agree with that. I can agree.
So
with
at that point, why fire DeBoer? I would lean Clark or give Graham a shot and then bring in a guy like Pavs or Ott.
I don't know that Steve Ott would come back without the head coaching job, but I mean it would be worth a shot. I think that
I meant you bring in David Carr as head or David Carr.
Yeah,
David
don't bring
Carr.
him in.
Yeah, don't want him.
No,
You bring in David Clark, right, as the head coach, or you bring in Neil Graham, or you bring in Steve Ott. And Pavs is one of your. If you bring in Neil Graham, you got to bring in Pavs as your bench coach or as one of your assistant or associate coaches, because he's going to be kind of your guy that's there to, help with the young up and coming coach, right? Because Pavs is going to be there to kind of help with the. He's going to have the ear of a lot of the guys in that locker room because he's got the relationships with those guys. Most of the veterans in that locker room.
Absolutely, I agree. My only concern with Carl is, despite the fact that he's had obvious success at the college level and at the junior level, 2 national championships and two junior championships. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's very impressive. I don't know if the room, and that's the thing with the hiring a college coach. You don't know if the room's going to be too big for him or not.
Yeah,
You would have to hire some experienced guys to put on the staff with him. Neil
sure.
Graham, same thing. He's good. He's good at the level he's at, but is he going to be? Is the room going to be too big?
Yeah,
So
it's always a gamble.
those are those are
That's
the those are the things that you have to worry about. I mean, with bringing in a first time coach. I mean, Jay Woodcroft, he was the former Edmonton coach. He's out there too. He's an assistant. I mean, he obviously had a good squad. They underachieved, and they fired him after a slow start to a season last year. And
yeah,
since then, I mean, Cup final last year, Cup final, Cup final this year. They didn't win last year, and they may not win this year, but they obviously, in my opinion, they have probably the two best hockey players on the planet, and one of them is, you can't even argue with Connor McDavid, but you also want to throw in there Leon Draisaitl, who
yeah,
he's 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 a 1A on that team, but he's a number one, a clear number one on every other team.
yeah.
So Jay Woodcroft, is he a good coach, or did he just have two phenomenal players? Then they went through a run of bad luck. It's it's going to be fascinating to see where the Stars go with this, and how they address their lack of toughness. And hopefully Otter, they bring in maybe a good goalie coach, somebody, at least an assistant that's good with goalies, because he's great in the regular season and he's good the majority of the playoffs. But then you get to the big moments and he seems to melt a little bit.
You know, I I would agree to an extent, but we're Otter's a young goalie, man, and he. I think part of it too. He was let down quite a bit by his defense. He saw a lot of shots, and that's why he's paid $7-8 million a year, however much he makes. He's a franchise goalie, but man, our defenders did him no favors, and
Agreed. Now our defense it's porous at times, but that's also been a problem for the last couple of years. Is they're great, when they're all playing together, but then they have, I don't know if it's a mental letdown or what it is, but it seems to fall off. They seem to just, it's glaring mistakes,
I
stupid
think we
penalties.
I think we touched on this early on, and it's toughness. You know, it
Absolutely.
when the going gets tough, and this is something that you coach kids early on. When the going gets tough, you don't quit. You
Yeah.
keep pushing. Like you're tired. Like, man, in hockey, they beat the crap out of each other all season, and when they get to the playoffs, it just gets harder.
Yeah.
Best of 7 game series, and they are literally beating the crap out of each other. They are getting into car wrecks every time they check each other into the boards. It is that is serious collisions, man.
Absolutely.
And
But the Stars, they flamed out. They were lucky to get by Colorado in the first round. If it hadn't
Mhm.
been for Mikko Rantanen just going nuts and scoring like crazy, and then even at the beginning of the Winnipeg series, he without him, they don't even make it out of the first round. They get past Winnipeg, they go to the conference final, but by this time they had been double shifting Mikko Rantanen, and just like we discussed earlier with Nigeria Kennedy in softball, he was worn out. He
Mhm.
he didn't have hardly any gas left in the tank, and it showed.
Yeah.
And when you play against a team like Edmonton, speed everywhere, physicality everywhere, you can't. You have to be clicking on all cylinders. And we talked about toughness. Toughness. It's not just about physical toughness. You have to have a mental. You have to
Oh
have
yeah.
mental toughness to be successful in sports.
Mhm.
Because if you don't, I mean, you're gonna. It's just it's just not going to work. I mean, you can have all the physical toughness you want. I mean, Edmonton has a lot of physical toughness, but to me, it looks like Florida's up 2-1 in that series, but it looks to me like Edmonton might be done because I believe Florida is in their head, and it's
Oh yeah.
as mentally tough as Edmonton seems to be most of the time. The Florida Panthers, they're the defending Cup champions. I believe they're going to win again this year. It appears to me that they are in the Edmonton Oilers' heads.
Mhm.
you don't take 20 plus penalties without without somebody being in your head. Without it's not just mental mistakes. It's the fact that Edmonton is worried. They realize that Florida is physically as good as they are,
Mm-hmm.
and if it hadn't been for a stupid penalty by the Florida one of the Florida players at the end of game one, where he needlessly flipped the puck up into the stands and took a penalty in overtime, Edmonton goes on the power play, scores fairly quickly, and the game's over. Without that, this could be a 3-0 series, and
Yeah.
Florida
They're
could
going
be
for the
looking to go.
key.
Edmonton could be looked to get swept here.
Yeah.
So that goes back to the mental toughness. So you have to have mental toughness. You have to have physical toughness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to see where the Stars go with their coach and if they can address the toughness issue. And I think if they hit on both, they have as good a chance of anybody in the league to be in the finals, and again to be in the finals next year and to possibly lift the cup. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about everybody's favorite whipping boy or everybody's favorite team, depending on how you look at this. Transition to a different sport with the Dallas Cowboys. They are America's team.
Yep.
They had some upheaval this season. They let go of their coach Mike McCarthy after several seasons. Brought in Brian Schottenheimer, who's been a career assistant. The vibe seems to be good, right now. But it's the off season. It's just training camp. The vibes seem to be good.
Yep.
Let's see how things go when times are tough, because usually that's when you really find out what a person's made of.
Sure. And there are a couple things that, first and foremost, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
So we know the big offseason story, aside from Coach McCarthy getting fired,
Yes.
the big acquisition a few weeks ago, George Pickens, right?
Yeah.
George Pickens will help, but what must happen to make the Cowboys a playoff caliber offense?
Well, I've pinpointed a few things, and I think you and I've talked about a few of these things. The things in my mind that we have to do, we have to be able to protect Dak Prescott, and that's simply, to me, that you brought in you had a great draft pick, in my opinion, in Tyler Booker from the University of Alabama. That solidifies the middle of your line with Tyler Smith on the other side. You have the center Beebe, the center that they got out of Kansas State. He played some guard, but I think his long-term future is at center, and I think he's going to be a really good center. So the middle of your line is good. I think you're going to be strong there. It comes down to your tackles. Tyler Steele, he has to stay healthy, and he has to prove that he can handle a full season's worth of what the NFL is going to throw at you, which, as we know, is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
The big key for me, though, is Tyler Guyton. He didn't show anybody much last year as the number one draft pick. They threw him in at left tackle. That was maybe a little too much right away.
Mm-hmm.
But he has to play better. He has to take a step forward and show that he can be at least a serviceable left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that with the addition of Pickens, if you give Dak time, if he has time to look downfield a little bit, then you've got Lamb working out of the slot, working all over the place. You've got George Pickens. He's an excellent guy going up for the 50-50 balls most of the time. He comes down with those. And then you've got Jake Ferguson. He works the middle of the field exceptionally well. He's a good young tight end. If you can get a little bit more from Luke Schoonmaker, the draft pick, the tight end from Michigan a couple of years ago, two tight end sets, I think you're going to be in great shape. Dallas also has to run the ball, though, which has been a problem for him, partially because of the line, partially because they didn't really have anybody in the backfield that could scare you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I believe that the man that is going to be tasked with being the main ball carrier, speed-wise, he doesn't scare you, but he's going to be consistent. He's going to be there every day. He's He's a good receiver out of the backfield, so that's going to be another safety, another safety valve for Dak. The addition that I'm really excited about to that running back room is Jadon Blue from the University of Texas. He did have some fumbling issues in college, but if he gets those under control, I think he has a chance to make a huge impact in this league, because anytime you get him the ball, he has a chance to score from wherever he is at on the field.
He is a spark plug for sure.
He's lightning quick. He's got great speed, and that's another thing that Dallas is going to have to do. Those running backs are going to have to. The line's going to have to play well, but the running backs are going to have to. They're going to have to help. They're going to have to carry the ball a lot. They're going to have to control the clock, because you give Dak protection. They run the ball well. It's just. And that's what's the best way to mitigate turnovers. You've got to be able to hold onto the football. You've got to be able to control the clock, run the ball. But you have to limit the turnovers, which hopefully Jadon Blue has gotten that fixed. Javonte Williams has usually been pretty good about not fumbling the ball. You also added Miles Sanders to that running back room.
Yep.
I don't know what he has left to offer. Was it just the fact that he was in Carolina why he struggled, or has he gotten a little past his prime? That's another thing that we'll see there. But I think with those three, I think you have a chance to be able to run the ball consistently, to help control the clock. The line protects Dak. Combined with those running backs, you have a chance to control the clock. You have a chance to control the field, run the ball, take time off the clock, take your shots with CD and George Pickens when you have the opportunity. But we've got to. I think those are going to help mitigate the turnovers. But you also have to have Dak play well. And but I think with those pieces around him, I think you're going to be able to do that. He just has to. I think Dak has to take it to another level this year, and they've given him the weapons. Hopefully, the line performs. That will. I believe that could lead to a good season, at least offensively for them. They have bringing in the new coaching staff. They have a new defensive coordinator in Matt Eberflus. We don't know what we're going to get from him. He's coached in this league for a long time. He was the head coach of the Chicago Bears the last few years. In my opinion, he is a very good defensive coordinator.
He is.
It's going to be a scheme change from what they had, but I think they have a lot of pieces to be successful there. I think, to me, it's going to come down to, on the defensive side of the ball, it's going to come down to how well they play up front. Mozzie Smith was a first-round draft pick a few years ago. He has underperformed greatly. I still think there's a ton of talent there, though. He's a very athletically gifted player. But as you well know, sometimes it takes a little while for it to click.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to balance with that. You have to balance is it ever going to click with, okay, let's be patient here. So that's a big key for me. Dallas have pieces in place. It's going to come down to, let's see what Schottenheimer has to offer. Let's see how he is when they're struggling, because they've got a pretty tough schedule this year. It's not going to be an easy schedule.
Yeah.
You don't really have. The Giants are going to be better than they were, I believe.
Yeah.
You should still be the better team there, but they're not going to be a cupcake.
No.
And you've got Washington and Philadelphia, the two teams that played for the right to go to the Super Bowl last year. And Philadelphia ultimately won that and ended up going to the Super Bowl and just waylaying the Chiefs and basically embarrassing the Chiefs and won a Super Bowl. So their division is tough. The league is tough. You're playing the AFC West, which, as everybody knows, has Kansas City in it. San Diego is continuing to rise with Jim Harbaugh as their coach. That's going to be a physical game. The Raiders are going to be better with their new coaching staff. You have a daunting season, so you have to win the games that you're supposed to win. You have to win those games. You can't have any letdowns there, and you're going to have to step up with the level of competition that you're going to have, because if you
Absolutely.
don't, it could be an embarrassing season for Dallas. What are your thoughts on that, John? I've talked enough. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the key is, you said it at first. You got to protect Dak, and that starts with the offensive line.
Yep.
Being a former offensive lineman, it's always about protecting the quarterback, especially when you're investing $60 million into him.
Yeah,
You know, it's all about protecting the offense, you know, protecting the quarterback of the offense. You know, he's the guy that makes the offense operate, right?
Yeah.
Anyone that knows anything about football knows that, right?
Yeah.
Limiting turnovers, which is something that Dak has not been able to do, it seems like, since early in his career. He was best at it his rookie year, which is crazy to think about. That was when he was best. And what he did his rookie year was take what the defense gave him. And if he goes back to that, he will do just fine. But if you look at the statistics, he's actually statistically one of the best deep ball throwers out there, which is hard to believe. Most Cowboy haters would beg to differ, but he is statistically one of the best deep ball throwers out there. So I agree with everything that you said. I do think that the biggest thing is you've got to protect Dak Prescott. That's A1, and you've got to run the ball better.
I agree. Time will tell how they go. I mean, we'll have to see. That's that we covered a lot in today's show. I mean, this is obviously our first show, first of many, hopefully.
Yeah.
We'll bring up some other topics next week. Probably still cover some of the same teams, obviously, and see where they're going. The Mavericks. We'll go over the Mavericks next week because the draft is coming up, and I don't know if you've heard or not, John, but the Mavs did get the first pick in the draft. So hopefully we have one Cooper flag inbound. I do want to wrap up here by saying another thank you to our sponsor, Ensemble Co-working. They are Fort Worth's hub for private offices, co-working, meeting space, and virtual mail. Find your perfect workspace at ensemblecoworking.com. John, thanks for taking this ride with me, man. You know, this has been a lifelong dream for me, and I know that you're very passionate about it. And
absolutely,
I'm super excited to continue this journey with you, sir. I think
it's going to be fun.
I think it's going to be.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.